I didn't cry when I saw the invoice, or when the jars went missing, or when he ghosted the tax meeting. I cried when my mom asked if we were still doing our little candle thing together. And what I said next still doesn't sit right with me, does it? Before I share what happened next, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. My first sale wasn't glamorous. It was a $12 lavender soy candle in a dented mason jar, sold to a mom friend from the church potluck who paid in crumpled ones. I wrapped it in thrifted tissue paper and wrote, "Thank you," in cursive with a Sharpie. That candle smelled like stress sweat and eucalyptus because I'd been up all night trying to get the scent ratio right. I started small. Side hustle stuff. Back then, I was still working 30 hours a week at the front desk of a dental office in Bloomington, Illinois, answering phones with a fake laugh and chasing unpaid bills between patients. But at night, I turned our galley kitchen into a lab. Wax splatters. Sticky counters. My AirPods barely hanging on while I mixed oils and prayed no one accidentally set off the smoke alarm. And when I say our kitchen, I mean mine and Tyler's. My boyfriend. Well, ex now. But we'll get there. It didn't start with him. The candle thing was mine, something I built slowly, in between everything else that didn't feel like mine. I didn't come from a family that talked about entrepreneurship. I came from casserole recipes and maybe one day dreams. But Tyler? He could sell snow in January. At first, it felt good having someone who believed in me before the numbers did. He started calling it our business around month 3. I let him. By the time we hit $2,300 in monthly sales, I had a tiny table at the Saturday market. Not a full booth. Just a fold-out with a banner I made at Office Depot and a menu of scents written in chalk. Tyler showed up once. Took photos like he was my manager. He posted them with captions like, "Proud of my girl, flex biceps fire, #candleboss," and tagged our joint Insta at Midwest Wicco. Except, he hadn't poured a single batch. He hadn't labeled a single jar. He never learned the difference between hot throw and cold throw. But when my uncle wired me $5,000 just to get started right, Tyler ordered a $1,200 camera and said it was for branding. We never got the photos. Looking back, the red flags were beige. Muted. Easy to miss when you're busy trying to survive. I thought I was building a future. He thought he was building a brand. Our apartment was small, but the way he talked made everything feel big. He pitched Shopify like he invented it. Gave me TED Talk advice on strategic partnerships while I was boiling wax at midnight. Every time I said we needed to track expenses, he said, "Trust the process." When I said I needed more help with shipping, he said, "Let me make us a reel first." I should have known. But when you've spent years being overlooked, even crumbs feel like a meal. Then came the pop-up. That's what Tyler called it. Capital letters. He convinced the owner of a downtown boutique to host us for Small Business Saturday. Said it would be the start of something bigger. I was nervous. We weren't ready for that kind of traffic. I didn't have insurance. I didn't even have consistent labels yet. He said, "Don't worry, babe. I'll handle everything." And I believed him. Because believing him was easier than doing it all myself again. The night before the event, I pulled an all-nighter. 112 candles. All hand-poured. Scents like Midnight Juniper and Sunday Morning. Names I came up with while folding laundry. I burned myself twice. Wrapped my fingers in gauze, and kept going. Tyler was editing promo videos in the next room, blasting synth music like we were launching a startup. He didn't notice when I cried into a bowl of soy wax. Didn't pause when I whispered, "I can't keep doing this alone." The morning of the event, he showed up in a hoodie with our logo, one I'd never approved, and handed me a square card reader that didn't work. Customers came. We sold out. And that's when I saw him hand his phone to a woman and say, "Follow us at Midwest Flame and Company. We're scaling fast." Midwest what? I thought maybe I misheard. Maybe he meant ours. But that night I checked. There was a whole second page. Same candles. Same names. But a different business. And a different face on the banner. Not mine. His. There wasn't a warning. No confrontation. Just that cold, weighted click when I tapped his new page and realized he didn't steal the idea. He duplicated it, cleanly, quietly, like a perfect copy with a credit stripped out. He used my scent names, my product photos, even my descriptions, word for word. Smells like a Sunday, without guilt. That line came from my journal. From me. I sat on the edge of our bed, laptop glowing in the dark, while he snored like nothing had happened. For a long moment, I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just cross-branding. But then I saw it. The shipping address on one of the receipts. It wasn't our apartment. It was his mother's house. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I poured 3 leftover candles from scratch.
No scent.
No label. Just wax. Because the act of making something with my hands was the only thing that still felt true. By morning, my voice felt hollow. Tyler kissed me on the forehead like he always did when he wanted to keep the peace and said, "Orders are coming in fast. We might need to hire help soon." I said nothing. Just nodded. But inside, I was unraveling. The next few weeks were a blur of pretending. I pretended I wasn't tracking every invoice he sent from his site. I pretended I didn't notice the ring light he ordered with my business card. I pretended I wasn't slowly moving my supplies back into the coat closet so I could start over from scratch if I had to. What really broke me, though, was what happened at my cousin Mallory's birthday dinner. We were seated at this long table at a local steakhouse. The kind with fake candles and waiters who smiled too hard. Everyone was catching up. Laughing. My aunt asked how the candle thing was going. And Tyler, with a mouthful of prime rib, leaned in and said, "We've actually pivoted to premium branding. I'm focusing on the creative now."
We.
My mom looked at me across the table. She didn't say anything, but I knew that look. The same one she gave me when I lost my college scholarship. The quiet question of, "Are you okay, or are you pretending again?" And in that moment I knew. I wasn't just losing my business.
I was losing my sense of self.
One night, I called my sister in secret. I hadn't told anyone what was happening yet. She picked up on the 3rd ring and said, "You sound weird. What's going on?" I told her everything. The copycat site. The double branding. The missing funds. The way I felt like a guest in my own business. Her silence on the other end was worse than anger. Then she asked me a question I'll never forget. "Why are you still letting him sleep next to you?" It was like someone had thrown a rock through my comfort. I kept trying to explain it away. We shared rent. We dated since college. We had history. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want to be alone again. Tyler wasn't just hijacking my business. He was hijacking the version of myself I'd finally started to believe in. The quiet, steady builder. The woman who found joy in wax temperatures and brand palettes. The woman who finally felt seen.
So I started documenting. Quietly. Carefully.
I screenshotted everything. My original product listings. His copies. The timestamps. His messages to vendors, claiming he formulated the scents. A weird DM from a boutique owner who thought I was his assistant. I made a folder. Named it Flameproof. And then I made a second copy. And a third. Because when you grow up with narcissists, you don't fight back loud. You prepare. One Friday night, while Tyler was at a networking mixer, I opened his laptop.
No pasquets.
Just have it. What I found wasn't just my content. It was emails to manufacturers in China trying to mass-produce my core line under his name. He hadn't just planned to copy me. He planned to erase me. My hands shook. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because by then I had a plan. The final trigger came in the form of a receipt. He left it on the counter, like he always did when he wanted me to log it for taxes. Except it wasn't for wax. Or Wix. It was for brunch at an upscale rooftop place. 2 entrees. 2 drinks. A $164 bill with the name Cassandra scribbled in the notes. Cassandra was his ex. The one he swore was crazy. The one he accidentally texted a few months back. The story I'd almost believed. Until that receipt. I packed my candles that night. The original scents. The scent formulas. My notebooks. The flash drives. All of it. I left behind the wax-splattered towels and the ruined label printer. Let him have those. They were poisoned by now, anyway. I booked a cheap Airbnb on the edge of town and stayed up all night rewriting my brand, top to bottom. New name, new logo, new story. I didn't tell anyone yet. But I wasn't just going to relaunch. I was going to expose him. And the way I planned to do it, well, that's when it got interesting. 3 days after I left, I posted my first video. Just me, a candle, and the truth. I didn't name him. Didn't have to. I just said, what would you do if the person you build a business with quietly started a second one behind your back, using your exact products, your exact words, and then tried to replace you in the story? I showed the scent sheets, the timestamps. I read off the line about a scent that feels like forgiveness, the one he'd stolen for his midnight pine candle. My voice didn't shake. The video wasn't polished, but it hit a nerve. By morning, it had 23,000 views. By nightfall, it had 118,000. By the end of the week, people were calling it the softest expose on the internet. Comments flooded in. She told this like a breakup lullaby. I knew a guy who did this to my sister. This is why we don't co-sign with boyfriends. And my favorite. This isn't just about candles. It's about identity theft, but make it emotional. People got it. They saw how real the theft was. How subtle. How deeply violating it felt to have your work rewritten. And that's when I knew I wasn't crazy. I was seen. Tyler texted me 3 times. Then 7. Then once more from an unknown number. Babe, this is low. We can talk. You didn't have to drag it public. That's not who we are. You think people will keep listening to this? I didn't respond, but I archived every message. And when he tried to log into the shared email from Midwest Wicco, I'd already changed the password. Same with the Shopify, the domain, the analytics. What he didn't know was that I had been paying for all of them. The LLC, in my name, the vendor relationships, my contacts, the wholesale deals, my outreach. He hadn't built the bones. He'd just decorated the outside. That week, I launched something new. Slow Burn Studios. A name that felt like healing, like quiet fire. My new tagline? Crafted from silence. Poured with intention. I didn't relaunch everything at once. I started with 3 signature scents, each one named after something I'd taken back. First Flame, a bright, citrusy scent that reminded me of when I first believed in myself. Ghosted Oak, deep and smoky, with a trace of something sweet you can't quite hold on to. Receipt number 47, sharp, clean, and unforgettable. The scent of starting over with proof in your pocket. I sold 112 in the first 48 hours. By the end of the month, I'd made back $5,470. Not the full $47,000 I'd lost.
Not yet.
But enough to start fresh. Then came the podcast request. A small but loyal true crime and betrayal series, Subtle Crimes, invited me to share my story. I said no at first. I wasn't trying to be famous. I just wanted peace. But then I remembered how many women had messaged me saying, "This happened to me." He said I was just emotional. They all thought I was bitter, but I was robbed. So I agreed, not to drag him, but to document the blueprint. The episode dropped on a Tuesday. I listened from my new apartment, a 1-bedroom with bad lighting and no microwave, but it was mine. The host called it romantic identity theft, when love becomes a business crime. She got it right. It wasn't about candles.
It was about ownership.
About how women are taught to second-guess their gut. How we hand over our labor with a smile and a soft apology. And how sometimes healing looks like taking back the narrative, not with rage but with receipts. Tyler went silent after that. He deleted Midwest Flame and Company. I heard through a mutual friend that Cassandra dumped him. Apparently, she didn't like being called version 2.0 behind her back. He posted a long Instagram note about creative differences and stepping back to reflect.
No one really bought it.
But here's where the soft revenge really lands. Last month, a local boutique I used to beg for shelf space messaged me.
They said,
We saw your story. We love your new line. Would you consider an in-store feature during our Women in Business Week? They offered me the whole front table. No folding card table.
No hassle.
Just a white oak platform and a sign that said, "Crafted by a woman who started over." I stood in that store, watching a stranger pick up ghosted oak, sniff it and say, "This smells like a lesson." And I smiled.
Because it was.
And I wasn't done yet. 2 months after I relaunched, my mother came to visit. She brought banana bread and a Ziploc bag full of coupons, her way of saying, "I'm proud, but let's not waste money now." She looked around my tiny apartment, saw the stacked candle boxes in the hallway, the ring light leaning against a plant, and just said, "It smells like you again." I didn't cry. Not right away. But later that night, I lit First Flame, sat on the floor with my laptop, and reread the very first order form I'd ever written by hand. The paper had a smudge of wax and the corner was torn, but it felt sacred, like a version of me I'd nearly let disappear. I started doing pop-ups again, but this time I brought a chair, and water, and boundaries. When people asked if I worked alone, I said yes. When they asked about scaling, I said I'm not in a rush. And when a woman in her 50s whispered, "This reminds me of something my ex tried to take from me," I handed her a candle for free. Because some things you give away to reclaim. Tyler didn't disappear completely. He made a second attempt at a business, this time with beard oils and terrible branding. A follower DM'd me screenshots. He'd called it Resilient Flame. Same font.
Same aesthetic.
Except this time, people weren't buying it. One of the comments under his launch post said, "This looks like that girl's brand. The one who told the story on subtle crimes." I didn't reply.
Didn't share it. Didn't need to.
He'd made himself the cautionary tale. Then came the letter. A real one. Folded. Handwritten. No return address. It said, "I never meant to hurt you. I thought we were building something together. I see now I was building it on you. You don't have to forgive me. Just, I wanted you to know I know now."
No signature.
Just a line at the bottom. "I bought 3 of your candles. I paid full price." I didn't need the apology. Not really. Because by then, I'd already found something better than closure. Control. I controlled my narrative. My brand. My silence. My light. I used to think revenge had to be loud. Explosive. A takedown. But now I know the truth. Sometimes, the best revenge is being unmistakably yourself, in a way they can't touch, can't replicate, and can never claim as theirs. 1 year later, Slow Burn Studios was featured in a BuzzFeed listicle. 10 side hustles that turned into full-time empires. I smiled when I read it. They called me the poet of product branding.
They quoted my tagline.
They linked the original video. But my favorite part? They never mentioned his name. Now, when people ask me how it happened, how I lost the business, the boyfriend, the money, I tell them, I didn't lose anything that was truly mine. I just made room for what always was. I still hand pour the first batch of every new scent. I still keep the name Flameproof for all my backup files. And every so often I still get messages that say, "I watched your story. I left someone too." That's the real reward. Because some candles aren't just scents. They're signals. Proof you made it out. With the fire still intact.